Hey man, I'm looking for a new fantasy series. You got anything in mind?
Finally! I've been waiting years for someone to ask me that. Might take you a few years to finish it, but here you go. Well, thanks. I guess. See ya.
Yo, what is going on? Thank you so much for joining in. So, the Stormlight Archive is currently 4,569 pages long, with that just being the core books in the series. 1.6 million words later, is it worth your time and investment if you haven't read the books just yet? So what we're going to do here today is quickly talk about what you can expect in each of the books without major plot spoilers, and then tier rank each one in terms of my objective opinion. So you can go ahead and trust me on that. For real though, I'm just going to be talking about what personally worked for me in each of these books. So if you're ready, let's dive into it. Alright, to start things off, I think there's no better spot than to start with the first book being The Way of Kings. So Way of Kings was originally published back in 2010 with 1,087 pages. I think looking at any book, regardless of the genre, that's 1,000 page plus is always going to be a little bit daunting. I mean, on average, people read about 250 words a minute, and with there being over 300,000 words in this book, this would take you 25 straight up hours of reading, consistent reading, taking no breaks at all. And as we all know, this is just simply not realistic, where people usually read maybe an hour or two a day. In our current TikTok-filled world, where you can get a dopamine rush with a swipe of a finger, can you really devote weeks, even months, to a single book? Well, with Way of Kings having over 450,000 ratings on Goodreads, some people obviously can. And can that person be you as well? Now, getting to the point of the video, what can you expect while reading 112 hours of a single series, The Stormlight Archive? Alright, starting off with The Way of Kings, I had a fantastic time reading this book, and it was a fantastic introduction into the world of Brandon Sanderson's Roshar. In this book, we have extreme world building all the way from the first page in the prologue. Brandon Sanderson does his absolute best to make you feel like you're in the world of Roshar, vividly describing the environment and the scenery, painting huge landscape within your mind, weather, mythology, magic system, societal structures, and so many more elements to help you get immersed into the story. We also get introduced to some really well-written characters that have a lot of depth that we follow our entire ride into the series. It's also full of intense action scenes that do a fantastic job building that anticipation in your chest with very satisfying conclusions. In addition to all this, there's a ton of philosophical themes like good versus evil, free will, self-identity. We also get some banger lines that serve as incredible memorable quotes that are always thought-provoking. My favorite one being life before death, strength before weakness, journey before destination. So overall, this is one of the best introductions into a fantasy series I've ever read, with a definite S tier in my mind, and definitely worth your time investment. Alright, moving on to book number 2, which is Words of Radiance, which is another 1,000 plus page book. Coming in hot right after Way of Kings, it makes me feel like we've only scratched the surface of the world of Roshar. Even though it was a huge ass book, the scale of the world continues to grow and expand into new areas we haven't seen before. We also get to dive deeper into some characters that we loved from the first book, and getting additional backstory, giving them even more depth than we got in the first entry. And there might be a few characters that you find kind of iffy in Way of Kings, really one in particular, where you start off kind of indifferent to how she is portrayed. Well, that completely changes in Words of Radiance. And the action for sure continues within this book, and it's written beautifully, and there's one particular event within this story that is just one of my favorite action scenes I've ever read in a fantasy book before. It completely hooked me as if I was a spectator in an arena watching a gladiator duel happen before me. We also get to explore more of the magic system in this one, and honestly it just gets more interesting as bonds grow and become anew. I also really liked how in a few scenes, Brandon Sanderson did not give you exactly what you wanted as a reader, subverting your expectations, giving you something that you didn't even know that you wanted. So overall, for my rating, this is going to be another S tier book, but right above Way of Kings. There we go. Alright, so book number 3 is Oathbringer, and this is our largest one yet, coming at over 1,200 pages. And with Way of Kings and Words of Radiance being S tier quality, I came into this one with super high expectation just because of, the quality that we got from the first 2 books. It's also at this point when I realized that each book had a strong focus on a particular character, and focusing on that singular character, we get more backstory, more context, and really just more reason to love that character. Also, just like in the first 2 books, the world building is still top-notch and somehow still growing. There's a particular ancient mythical city that I just loved learning more about, as the characters slowly uncovered what was lingering in the shadows. And there's definitely a larger significance placed on politics within this book compared to the previous 2, which I am always a fan of. And of course, the action still continues with crazy intense scenes as well. At no point was I bored within this story, and I really did enjoy it, even though as a whole it had a darker undertone compared to the first two. With that being all said, Oathbringer for me was A tier quality, but very high A tier. So I'm gonna place it right here. Again, it was a great addition to the Stormlight Archive series. Book number 4 is Rhythm of War, which is another 1200 page plus book. So really after 3 books, there's just some things that you can expect from a Brandon Sanderson novel, with that being character development, world building, and adrenaline pumping action. Rhythm of War, in my mind, continued 2 of those things really well, with that being character development and world building, but the action was definitely limited within this one compared to the previous entries. In this story, it had a strong focus on mental health, overcoming self-doubt, and scientific exploration, which I think are great topics that we can all relate to in real life, which is always good to see within a fantasy book. We also focused heavily on some characters that were just initially side characters within the first couple books, which didn't fully click with me for all the new entries, but overall I still had a good time reading them, and it was still interesting. So overall, I had a good time reading another 1200 page plus book that I think will satisfy any fantasy needs that you have from a reading perspective. And in my mind, this is another A tier book that comes right after Oathbringer. So now that we have these 4 books ranked, I think you can clearly see that we're working with A+ tier books and above. So is it worth your time and scanning millions of words with your eyeballs? Yes, absolutely. I think this is a great series that will meet the needs for any fantasy fan, providing you with a thrilling story, intricate and expansive world building, characters that you can't get enough of, and an ongoing mystery that will keep you interested from the very beginning to the latest book. So I'm for sure excited to continue the series, as I know Brandon Sanderson will deliver in the next book. So have you started the Stormlight Archive just yet? If so, which was your favorite one? It's really just a quick video for you, but for sticking around this long, you've earned 1 XP token, and if you're already a subscriber, you get an extra XP token, so here you go. And be sure to follow me on X or Twitter, because I'm going to announce a new series on my channel here pretty soon that I'm super excited to show you guys. Have a good one. Peace.